Good morning, people. It is Wednesday, so it's time for my midweek pickup. First, before we get started, I want to send out all my prayers and everything to all the people in Baton Rouge that's been suffering with this weather and being displaced from their homes and everything. I know that it is extremely hard. Um, I do believe there are some sites that we can go to. I seen one on Facebook if you want to help donate clothing or donate anything to the families that are going through this tragedy right now. And I just want to, put it out there for everybody to say a prayer for everybody suffering in Baton Rouge and for all the other crazy things that's going on in the world. It's just remember to continue to pray for those who are going through something that is very, very difficult. Um, Today, I want to talk about happiness and priorities. The other day, I was cooking Friday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday last week. I was cooking and, doing my same routine or whatever. Of course, when you do that type of stuff, it's a lot of cleanup after and everything. So, my wife was, of course, helped cook and everything. And she left to, I think it was go pick up my daughter or something from her sisters. And I started cleaning the house after I finished my day, selling and cooking or whatever. And somebody asked me, it was like, man, you worked all day and then you go cook, you go clean the whole house when you get home. And I don't think they were ready for the response that I gave, but the response that I gave was, even though I'm trying to build an empire, I'm a husband first, and I'm a husband and father first, in that order. So, of course, it was, well, if I was working that hard, I wouldn't be doing nothing going to sleep. But that's where your priorities come in, and that's where you have to pick and choose. That's a simple explanation right there. But let's really talk about it. Priorities. I see so many people these days worried about designer looks, worried about how their car looks, worried about, just the things in life that doesn't really matter. And then when it comes time to, pay some major bills or pay the rent, they're either struggling or trying to find a way to get the money. And, right there, should tell you right there that your priorities are mixed up, but a lot of people don't see it like that. A lot of people live off of risk. And I say that because, of course, we all have gone through that paycheck to paycheck scenario and everything, but people are living paycheck to paycheck, but then they're putting other crap before paying their bills. You see it all the time on social media. I've posted it before too. And it says, I might be broke, but everything else is taken care of. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather be broke than my lights be cut off. I'd rather be broke than me being late on my rent. I'd rather be broke than my car being repossessed. You know what I'm saying? You have to look at things and put them into real perspective, because if you don't, then you're going to end up losing that car that you are trying to be so flashy to show people. You're going to end up losing the big house that you tried to buy because you were trying to keep up with the Joneses, and just because your credit was great, you went out and bought a $300,000 house and you don't know how to maintain it. These are things that we have to always keep in our head and think about, because if we don't think about that and we get our priorities completely mixed up and we don't know what priorities are more important than other priorities, that's when things start disappearing in our lives like that. And then you wonder what is going wrong, what are you doing? The answer is simple. You're destructing yourself because you don't know what's really important. I mean, think about it. How many of y'all go to the clubs and see somebody in the club, whether it's male or female, balling out of control in the club, just going crazy or whatever, and then you see them go out to their car, or even if they don't have a car, you see them go out, grab a taxi real quick, or whatever the case may be, and then they go home. But they go home, and then 2 days later, their lights are off. You have to prioritize. Sometimes you can't go to the club every other day trying to be club famous and then go back home and your lights are off. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make no sense, because then you have to ask people for what you need, and that's something that you do not want to get in the habit of. I mean, think about this, people. Most of the people who watch my midweek pickups, we are 30 plus now. So we should have our priorities in order, but sometimes we don't, because sometimes, yes, we do want to look flashy. Yes, we do want to go out there. Yes, we do want to show, you know what I'm saying, what we have or whatever, if you're that type of person. But think about it like this. Even 2 years from now, with all of your priorities being mixed up, going out doing things that you could have waited for, um, 2 years from now, where are you going to be? From all the partying and procrastinating, where are you going to be? I'm going to tell you where you probably would end up being, and it's not going to be cool. Um, if your priorities are messed up and you have an apartment or a house and you're always putting everything else before your bills, and you're struggling and striving and scratching trying to get your month's rent within a couple days or whatever, and then when the first comes around, it's a Friday and you end up going to the club and you end up blowing your money, and then you can't pay your rent. So what's the next step for you then? Can you get the money to pay off the late fees later on? Or are you going to have to possibly move back in with family where you don't have space of your own, versus saying, "Nah, I'm gonna miss the club this night, and I get my rent together or whatever." And then, yes, after you pay your rent and your bills, you may be flat broke, flat ass broke. But you have to always realize, I might be broke, but my lights is on. I got running water to take a bath. My gas is on. I can cook for myself. You know what I'm saying? It's my car notes paid, so I don't have to worry about somebody coming and snatching up my car when I'm at work or wherever the case may be. You have to prioritize. But then some people are trying to fill that void of not being complete, not being happy, because they're trying to fill it with other things, other worldly things that's going to give them temporary pleasure, but it's not going to give them the pleasure that they need to become something better. So, a lot of times when people's priorities are mixed up, it's because they're unhappy. And unhappiness leads to rash decisions in any circumstance. So, what you have to do is, I hear so many people saying this too, is, "Oh, I just can't be happy. It never works out for me. I'll never be happy." And I'm going to tell you why you'll never be happy. It's because you're saying you will never be happy. You can't be happy. Sometimes you have to speak things into existence for them to come true, and it has to be repetitive. You have to know that, hey, I want to be happy. Hey, I am going to be happy. I'm going to make it through, you know what I'm saying? Even if it's hour by hour or day by day, you know what I'm saying, week by week. You have to keep saying, you know what I'm saying, I know that I'm happy. I want to be happy. I'm going to be happy. So many people are clouded by negativity that they don't understand that if you want to be happy, you're going to be happy. Period. Because it's something that you want. It's something that you're thriving for. It's a goal in mind. When you set a goal in mind and you really, really have passion to complete that goal, it's going to end up happening. So, for all the people who may be going through some things and they think that, they're in a situation where they can't be happy, or they're in a situation where they think that they're never going to find happiness, whatever the case may be, it's not the other person's fault. It's your fault, because you're not doing what you need to do to make yourself happy. And if you're not doing that, then how can someone else do it? How can messed up priorities fill that void? How can anybody or yourself get you to where you need to be when you yourself are your own anchor and you will not let the anchor up so you can keep sailing downstream? Who's the real problem? It's not the person that talks behind your back. It's not the person, it's not your mom that could be lecturing you about every and each thing, that you do, even though you may be doing good or whatever. It's not about them. It's about you, and it's about how you attack life. I've talked about certain things in life that come across that's going to take you off of track before, and it's the same thing. You have to be able to recognize everything in every situation, the pros, the cons. You have to make a call on whichever one is more important. That's what you go for. Adversity is always going to strike. Trust me. No matter what you're doing, it's going to happen. But again, you have to know how to face adversity and beat it, or use adversity as a tool for you to get what you really want. In life, it's very easy to do the it's very easy to do the wrong thing because it's that easy. But it's way harder for you to do the right thing, because when it comes down to the right thing, you have to be the one that's deeply rooted into what you're trying to do in order for you to do the right thing. So I'm going to go on and wrap it up. Just remember, make sure that your priorities are straight, especially if you have children, if you have, something that you're really paying on, make sure that your priorities are straight. You don't have to go to the club every night. You don't have to go to the club every other night. You don't have to spend your money on things that are not really for you, but for show. You don't have to do all of that type of stuff. I had a friend that told me he had to sit down and figure out what it was he wanted to do exactly. And he said that he had to take 5 years off, meaning he had to take 5 years off of going somewhere, going out to the club, going to do things, blah, 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 blah. His priorities were completely in order. And you know what happened? After the 5 years, yes, they got a house. They got their first house. And then they were like, hey, we need to go on and get our second house. And he knew what he had to do. He knew what he had to cut out of his life. He knew what was more important. So he prioritized that. And now they have a huge, huge, lovely house. Huge. And I asked him, how did you do it? I really wanted to know. And he was just like, to tell you the truth, I just kind of got off the scene for about 5 years and just worked and, saved and didn't really go nowhere. Just did what I had to do in order to get my house for my family. That is the perfect example of having your priorities in order. Doing what you have to do so you can get to a certain goal. Sacrificing fun, because fun's always going to be there. Think about it. The way that we grow now, as far as, I guess you can say, evolution, if you will, using this verse with the party aspect. The party might be cool as hell right now, like super cool, like, oh, I gotta be there. It's one that's in a lifetime thing. But as we know, as time progresses and future keeps going on and on or whatever, not the rapper, but I'm just saying, time-wise, future. In the future, I'm pretty sure that same fun that you were chasing 5 years ago, if you made it through your 5-year plan, is probably even better fun than it was 5 years ago, because everybody wants something that they have to become better. So while you're trying to grow, all of those places that you thought was so cool and so fun to go hang out and give them all your money to, they're going to grow too. So you still have time to go out and do that type of stuff. But what are you willing to give up in order to get out there and do that type of stuff? You want a house? Prep for a house. Really, really prep for a house. Do what you have to do. You want that new car? Okay, make sure your credit's in line. Make sure your credit score is good. don't be running your credit like all the time. You know what I'm saying? Just make sure you have your priorities straight before you jump into something that you really don't need to do, and that's going to take you 5 steps backwards instead of taking that 1 or 2 steps forward. With that being said, I'm going to wrap it up. Y'all have a good week. I will see y'all next week. Put God first, family second, everything else will follow. Always remember that. Always, always, always remember that.